Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Before we begin our presentation, let me introduce myself. My name is Muhammad Raihan Wahyu from the Faculty of Medicine, Universitas Muhammadiyah Yogyakarta, with student number 20200310174. In this very special occasion, I will present to you my paper, which is titled Medical Student Perspective on the Effects of Online Learning to Their Physical Activity. In this presentation, we will talk about 5 methods. The first one being the introduction, the second one being the research method, the third being findings. After that, we will talk about the discussion in this paper, and finally, we will conclude it. So, let us begin. For the background, after 2 years of the emergence of COVID-19, it affects every aspect of human's life. With one example is students and their educational program. Such aspect that is being affected by COVID-19 is students' physical activeness. So it begs the question and the aim of this research, which is what is the medical student's perspective on their physical activity during the implementation of online learning? And to answer that research goal, we need to ask some questions. This question, which are, what are the effects of online learning on a medical student's physical activity? And the second question would be, how do medical students control their physical activity in online learning environment? For the research method that is used in this paper, we have used a qualitative method through the use of individual interview via audiovisual communication application that is used, which is Zoom. For the respondent criteria that will participate in this paper, the first criteria being an active medical course students that have undergone online learning medical course for at least 2 semesters. And the second criteria would be medical students in the age range between 19 to 25 years old. After searching for the respondents, we find 3 respondents or interviewees. The first interviewee, age 19, which is a female, with interview 2, age 20, is a male, and the interview 3, age 19, is a female. So, for the question studies asked in this study will be divided into 3 sections. The first section consisted of the first and second question, which is, what do you know about physical activity and what activity you usually do that you consider as physical activity? This section of the research are asked to understand and know and confirm the respondents' understanding to subject matter of this paper, which is physical activity. The second section of this paper, which is consisted of question point 3 and question point 4. Question point 3, which says, compared to before the start of online learning activity, how is the condition of physical activity that you do? And the fourth question would be, during the online learning activity, how do you reach your campus? With sub-question being in kilometer, what is the distance between your house and your campus? And second sub-question, which is, other than to go to your campus, how do you travel between places? Question section 2 is asked to understand respondents' understanding and what they feel like the difference between for online learning implementation and after the implementation of online learning. For the third section of the research, it consisted of question point 5, 6, and 7. Question point 5 is a question which is, do you have any hobby that you consider as physical activity? With the sub point of question is the first, if yes, how many times per week do you do that activity? Second sub point is, how many minutes per day do you do that activity? And the third sub point is, do you feel any differences in doing this activity before and after the implementation of online learning environment? The sixth question in this research is, do you exercise regularly? With the sub question, the first being, how many times per week do you usually exercise? And the second sub question is, how many minutes per session do you usually exercise? The seventh point of question in this research is an estimation. How much time do you use every day to sit and reclining? Question section 3, which is 5, 6, and 7, are asked to understand the condition of physical activity of our respondents in this time. This question is based loosely on GPAQ released by WHO with the question point 5 to represent the physical activity for recreational purpose. The 6 also a recreational purpose, with in this context being the exercise, and the 7 based on the time used by each respondent for sedentary behavior. The question point 4 that is in the section 2 of this research aims to understand, also based on the GPAQ by WHO, is to understand the physical activity affected by mobility of respondents. So after we've done our interview, this is the findings that we get. For the question number 1, all interviewees describe physical activity as an activity that involves body or physical movement. This answer by the respondent is in line with the definition of physical activity by Tremblay et al. In 2017, which said that physical activity in general is any body movement that is created because of the muscle contraction, and it creates an increase of basic metabolism level. For the question number 2, we find that all interviewees answered this question in line with the answer in question point 1. They give examples such as doing daily chores, walking, and then exercising. And after that, they also give example of extracurricular, curricular event and activity. For the question number 3, all interviewees agree that their physical activity condition before the start of online learning were more frequent and intense. The interviewee explains that the physical activity that they do right now, there are decrease in the frequency, and intensity. However, interviewee number 2 said that there are extra flexibility in online learning environment in doing their physical activities. For the question point 4, despite the difference of distance between their home and their campus, all interviewees prefer to use motorized vehicle over more challenging physical activities such as walking and by using bicycle. They also all agree in this preference that they also prefer to use motorized vehicle not only to go to campus but to other places. On the question number 5, interview 1 and 3 both stated that they do not have any activity that they consider as physical activity. In the interview number 2, had a hobby of badminton and athletic activity such as running around. With every session, usually are within 30 to 60 minutes and 3 times per week. 3 times per week in this interview with 2 is before the online learning began. After the beginning of online learning, it decreased into 1 week, 1 times per week. In the question number 6, all interviewees stated that they exercises at least once or twice a week, with all interviewees exercise at the very least 30 minutes per session. In the question number 7, interviewee 1 and 3 stated that they spend up to 12 hours per day to sit and reclining. Meanwhile, interviewee 2 stated that he spends around 3 to 5 hours. For the discussion, the reason that we found in this decreasing amount of physical activity, according to the interviewee, are because of the absent need to mobilize from one place to another and lack of facility and activity to do physical activity and the lack of outdoor activity. This finding of decreasing physical activity during online learning can also be found in previous research done by Chu et al., which stated that there are a decrease of physical activeness in students and an increase of sedentary behavior after the implementation of online learning. After that, we can also see from the finding that the respondents have already do something to at least decrease their sedentary behavior and increase their physical activity. However, as we see from the question point 4, we can see that there are still many improvements that can be done by the students and the respondents to increase their physical activity by not using motorized vehicle, for example, and decrease their sedentary behavior and replace it with any level of physical activity, which they can use biking, bicycle, or they can walk to places that are not too far, or if their campus is quite near from their house. We can also see that the respondents have also done some things to decrease their sedentary behavior and increase their physical activity by their exercise. They say that they exercise around 1 to 2 times per week for 30 minutes per session. This can be considered as an increase of physical activity. However, their physical activity is still not sufficient according to guideline released by World Health Organization, which stated that for people aged 18 to 64, it is recommended for them to do around 150 to 300 minutes of moderate level exercise every week, or 60 to 70 to 150 minutes of vigorous level of exercise every week. So there are many improvements that respondents, or in this case, medical students, can do to increase their physical activeness. So to conclude this presentation, first, medical students acknowledge the decreased physical activeness and increase of sedentary behavior after the implementation of online learning environment. Because of that, it is very important for us to take an extra care toward physical activity routine in the online learning environment so that we can keep our physical activeness to a better result in our body health. It is also recommended for researchers in the future to increase the variation of respondents in this research if they want to research the a matter or study the same or similar things as we do in this study. That is all from me. Thank you so much for your attention. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.